When Gibson Kalamazoo wanted to step up the game, they created the Standard 82. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. This curiously named model was a very important stepping stone within Gibson's history. The lore behind this model is as the Heritage 80 Standard and Elite series started to wrap up, which was a Nashville production, Kalamazoo wanted to show them how it was really done to create a reissue, and here's what they came up with. We still have the two-piece center seam maple top, just like in the 50s. They outdid them by utilizing a real ABR1 bridge and enhancing the top carve just a little bit more. And the headstock was just a little bit slimmer over here, and all of the Standard 82s have a one-piece mahogany neck, whereas that was only a spec on the Elites that had the ebony fretboard. So the Standard 82s have that beautiful blending of one-piece neck with the rosewood fretboard. So it's not a vastly different guitar, but the whole ABR1 bridge is a step in the right direction because this is 1 year before you get the introduction of the prehistoric models. Now, what makes a prehistoric is an ABR1 bridge, all other proper constructions, and an ink stamped serial number. Unfortunately, the Standard 82s are not technically pre-prehistorics because they don't have the inked number. So that's the skinny of the Standard 82. Some additional fun facts that you might want to know. The Standard 82 was made in 1982. But wouldn't that be awkward to have a model called the Standard 82 if it was made in 83? There were a few of them done, but they updated the title to Standard 83. Paid close attention to those truss rod covers though. Those are silk screened, whereas the original 82s are actually engraved like they used to do in the early 70s. Such a cool look. And there was also a Black Beauty custom influenced one known as the Black Beauty 82, with the occasional Black Beauty 83. Generally speaking, these will have some of the most exotic tops that you will ever see at a Gibson from this era. I mean, I used to think this thing was just absolutely fantastic, and it still is, but you gotta remember, I own this crazy beast. A likely custom ordered 1982, technically pre-prehistoric, that has the ink stamp serial number. And generally you'll find 3 different finishes. Cherry Sunburst is one of the harder ones to find, but then you'll find like a Honey Burst. This one listed by Grinning Elk Guitars 10 years ago has to be one of my favorite ones of that. And then more of an ambered natural. If you're interested in a deeper dive and understanding all the models, I highly suggest checking out my first Standard 82 video when we did a deep dive on that natural. I've owned this one for 3 years and I thought it's time to finally give this thing the cleanup and workbench treatment, and maybe that other video is a bit too heavy for some people, so I wanted to lighten it up a bit. So let's go ahead and throw this one onto the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs and then get to a playing sample. Here we go, all shined up. I decided to try something new. I will occasionally just randomly start live streaming on my channel now of the cleaning process, just to chat with you guys. This is the first one I've done that on in the past 6 years. So, this might look familiar to some of you, but let's go ahead and dive into our Standard 82. Starting with our pickups. Our nickel covers have some scratches to it and a little bit of wear to the plating over here. But check it, we're in luck. It's the original Tim Shaw PAFs dating to May of 1981 in the neck, and the exact same thing in our bridge pickup. And within the circuit, we get a reading of 7.45 k ohms in the bridge, neck position at 747, and they play together nicely at 373. Those are some healthy Tim Shaw PAFs. As far as the routes themselves, nothing too crazy here. Still have the short neck tenon, maple top joining onto a solid mahogany body, and about the same stuff in our bridge pickup cavity. However, there is a interesting chunk of wood missing out at the center right there. It's just a small sliver, but that's under the finish, so that's how it left the factory. Full disclosure, it looks like somebody started to install the pickup ring wrong right there, but they caught it before they fully committed. All the other ones are looking good to me over here. Now, bridge and tailpiece time. At first you might think, hey, what is going on here? That is a double thumb post. So what we have right here that sets the height of the bridge, you just have that again down here. Sometimes guys would modify ABR1s with that to prevent something called post lean, especially when the guitar sets up best with really, really high positionings. Both of my Standard 82s in my collection had that, and I've seen many others with that, so it might have been factory. Here's a look at the bridge itself. It's got a little bit of nickel plating wear on this side. This must have been a Gary Moore style player, or this was installed upside down for most of its life. That happens. It was installed correctly when I first got it. As far as our tailpiece, it is a full weight one of the era. And then while cleaning this, I thought of something else different between the Heritage series and the Standard 82s. They get the cutaway horn a little bit nicer on these. But this quilty top just came to life after a nice deep polishing. A lot of the guys in the live stream were roasting the cherry sunburst color, but hey, it's just part of the era, my friends. You either dig it or you don't. It looks good on certain examples. And this one, even if you don't like it, I think you can appreciate the kind of top that it has. I really like the dark streaking right here too. As far as our condition, we do have a couple of dings on the top. You can see that especially right around here on our knobs, and even some down here where our two-piece center seam joins. So it's not a perfect guitar, but it's in decent shape. But now, our pickguard had an interesting find. So it looks like somebody probably pickguard off this one for a while, but they didn't like that being exposed, so they dyed it slightly red. So it didn't stand out quite as much, but when somebody installed a pickguard, some of that red dye bled off onto the screw. So when I first took that out, I was like, what is going on there? That's my best guess. But here's a look at our pickguard. Just our regular creaminess. But moving on from our two-piece quilted maple top and mahogany body, we've got that mahogany neck with a nicely conditioned rosewood fretboard. Went ahead and gave it the nice polishing treatment as well. There's not a lot of wear to the upper frets. However, up until the 10th fret, then you see some mild flattening, especially more so in the cowboy cord area. Nothing crazy deep, but just want you to be aware of it. Otherwise, it's a 24 3/4 inch scale with a 12-inch fretboard radius. I measure a 1.69 inch nut width, increasing to 2.06 by the 12th. First fret necked up, 0.85, and 0.98 by the 10th. It certainly starts off slimmer, but then closer to the 12th fret, you can see it gets a little bit more body to it. Here's that neck profile at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. It actually has quite a nice roundedness to it. But you can definitely see what we were talking about over here, how it thickens up. As far as the condition on the side, you can see some light lacquer checking, and it looks like the finish is starting to flake off the side of the nut. It's possible there might have been some mild nut work on this one. You can actually see there's a little bit of finish that stands proud on the edge of the nut there. That's why I think something at some point has been messed with there. But that's not necessarily the nut material. It's almost like the clear coat just got bunched up. You might be able to finely sand that down if it bugs you. Then we have a mild line along the neck right here. But the face of the headstock's looking quite nice. It polished up beautifully. You can see your big old blocky Gibson logo, your Les Paul model silkscreen, as well as our truss rod and mahogany neck. Everything's good to go there. The extent of damage up here is mainly limited to string changing scratches. You can see lots of swirls. So not perfect. But let's look at this really cool truss rod cover. The fact that we have an engraved one is just so cool. I'm glad I decided to review this today because I don't think that quite clicked with me when reviewing the natural one. We've been reviewing quite a few early 70s guitars, so it just stood out to me this time that, hey, they had stopped doing that for most models by then. So that's a cool thing about the standard 82s. But now the title for this one. When I opened up this backplate, there was a hidden message. I thought this was so cool of a previous owner. It basically says, I was a Dumbo, I put Seymour Duncans in it, but I reinstalled the original pickups to this guitar, the Tim Shaw PAFs. Don't ever touch these. They're the original factory pickups. They're way better than anything else. This is a special 59 reissue, blah, 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 blah. Trying to warn you to not mess around in here. Good thing I'm a trained professional and I'm just verifying things. But for all the apologizing, I've got to say, I don't know if everyone would catch that those are not factory original joins. I mean, they look decent enough. I've seen much worse in my days, but it definitely would have stood out as slightly modified to me. But hey, as long as you have the Tim Shaw PAFs, that's all that matters. But we've got 1980 pot codes in our first two positions. And wow, second week of 1979 over there. And 21st week of 79 here. Using up the old parts. But this is before they used the CNCs on the guitars, so that was just a drill run for our output jack. This one's got a plastic plate and original style strap buttons in our usual locations. Here's a quick look at our toggle switch. Went ahead and deoxit cleaned out all this stuff. The back looks nice and shiny, but get it in the light, you can see there's lots of worming and impressions on the back here. It's not a mint condition standard 82, but it's not too beat up. There's some really good flame figuring dancing within this body. Hopefully the outside B-roll shots will show that off. There's some really cool wood grain in general on this one. But here we can see we've got the correct thin binding in the cutaway, lightly exposing our maple top there. It just has the red coloring, so it's kind of hard to see that. And we've got a couple of scratches and dings over along this side too. I would say that's the most major case of that, along with over here. And now move up the back side of the neck. There's a very interesting mineral streak line right here. I like it. Outside of that, just some mild impressions on the neck. And you get some more of that streaking up here. That is not a break, crack, or repair. However, you do have this, which is quite ugly, I won't lie. But I don't actually believe it to be a crack and like a re-glue. I think it's just a deep scratch from something. Because you can see along the edges that it didn't like crack and break off. That's just your wing line that you see right there. So that does not line up with that at all. And you've got some other scratching and marring by these other tuners. But there's our vertical Made in USA stamp, which is one way to tell that it was Kalamazoo versus Nashville. Another way is your last three digits here being 031, because that's under 500. But then you can further date it to 1982, 116th day of the year. While restringing this, I realized here's another thing the Standard 82s have over the Heritage series, the correct Kluson style tuners. Correct style as far as low footprint on the headstock. For whatever reason, they were possessed to put metal switch tips on. I guess just to make them stand out. But now we can do a blacklight test. Interesting. So those dings we were looking at earlier actually might have some mild touch-up to them. That way they didn't stand out as much. They did a fantastic job. I didn't even realize that. Otherwise, you can see the other dings that you have on the top as well as your sweat absorption area. This one was definitely played quite a bit. But after the polishing job, I mean, it looks very clean. But other than that, no major monkey business on here. Face of the headstock is ultra clear. No issues here. Moving on to the back of the body, you can see some lacquer rub right there. Otherwise, we're looking good. Heel join area also looks fine to me. Look around the edges just to make sure. But we're looking good. But now our headstock. Most importantly right here. I don't know, maybe there was a little bit of finished touch-up. I'm not sure. But here we can see those lines along the neck are not malicious. And moving up the back side of our headstock, we can see that mystery area. I still believe that's just a really deep scratch and it just happened to go through the finish. That's just how deep it is. But is it possible it could have been like a small chip that was repaired? I don't personally think so, because I don't see a split anywhere else, just another area where there was a ding. You know what that actually is? Sometimes guitar stores hang these up by strings, and that would come up to a point. That's what that was. So it impressed the finish like that. As you can see, a similar one over here. But all said and done, our quilty friend weighs 9 pounds, 14.9 ounces. Just barely under 10. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how she sounds. I'd say that's a good set of shaws. At first I was thinking that neck pickup is a little dark. But it works better with your single notes. Nice and chimey in the middle. Now let's hit it with some dirt. So there we go, a Cherry Sunburst Standard 82. How did Kalamazoo do? Honestly, it is a very nice guitar. Now, is it worth it to you to pay how much you have to pay for one of these collectible guitars? I will leave that up to you. You can definitely get a very nice Heritage Series, which isn't too far off from this, but the neck profile is really different. Having the ABR1 bridge, whether that matters or not to you, that'll just depend on who you are. But I had a great time with this one. The most standout feature to me, outside of the finish and the quilty top, has to be this neck. I love how right over here there's a dark mineral streak in it. And of course you have some more of that on your headstock, etc. So if you're interested in being the next owner of this one, I am reluctantly gonna accept some offer just because I don't think I need multiples of every single color of every single model. I need to build the initial collection first. So feel free to reach out if you're interested in being the next owner of this rare Standard 82. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed, learned something new, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.